Okay. Good evening, students. Welcome to yet another LVRC on the topic of GST itself, wherein today we have lot of topics to cover. We will cover registration, we'll cover tax invoice, credit and debit notes, accounts and records, and e-waybill. Okay. So this is quite lengthy topics, but we for sure know that we can cover all of this because these are not very intense topics like input tax credit, supply. We need to understand those in bare details. Here we need to know, but we know that the concentration of marks on these topics is less. So that's why we can bundle this up and understand it. Okay. We have already read this. There's nothing very complicated in this, that this just one reading, two reading maximum, I would say. Whereas other topics may require you to have at least three to four readings. This two readings should be sufficient. And if you pay concentration and pay the attention for these topics, it is easy to learn these topics. Okay. So I have two approaches for this since the topics are very lengthy. Shall we go with the topics first or shall we go with the MCQs? Because like in the other classes, what I've experienced is when we start with the MCQ, you get to know the topic, you answer the answers, and which answers you don't know, that you can ask specifically and we can go to those topics, right? So since you are the students, you tell me which approach works. I'm okay with either of the approach. So this is the option given to you. Should we go with MCQ first or should we go with the theoretical aspect and then come to the MCQ? Thank you, Lokesh, for the response. Others? Thank you, Gulika, for your response. We'll see the majority view and then move forward that way. Okay, Golti Anil. The reason why I said MCQ first is this is a revisionary classes, so we will expect you to read those things so this we can revise it quickly. Okay, thank you, Sarang. Thank you, Sid. Oh, I'm getting mixed response. 50% are saying MCQ first and 50% is saying revision first. Others who's not responded. Sarang MCQ first also is okay, very good. Okay. So I think majority have said that we'll go with the MCQ first. So don't have to worry. We will cover all the topics. And while we take the MCQs first, if there's any topic, tell me. I will take a note of it so that those topics specifically I'll cover. The intention is that we should understand those topics which we don't know. If we don't know the full chapter, then there's a worry. I hope that's not the case. So the whole chapter you don't know can't be a case. The case could be that you don't know certain topics. That will be very, very helpful. Okay. So we'll start with the MCQs. We have multiple topics covered here, and it is gone in the topic wise itself. So it will not be like a jumble up, right? So don't have to worry. It will be in accordance with the topics itself. Okay. So first MCQ. Now I need active participation for this so that I will know that, okay, which are the topics. And during the MCQ, if you have any doubts, you can ask. I will make a note of it and we will discuss those topics as well. this is on the topic of tax invoice, debit notes, and credit notes. So, what are the requirements to mention in the invoice? Okay, few people are saying the answer is B, but we have to give an answer when there is an answer which is close. Two answers are close. Then we have to give, generally in the exams also you have to keep a point on this, that when you have two answers which are close, you have to give an answer which is more specific. It may look that yes, B is also yes, C is also yes, but what's the difference? C is more specific than B. So whenever you have two conflicting or two answers which are looks like same, but a answer which is more specific is what we have to give. B says that yes, it is mandatory. C also it says it is mandatory, but it also adds up that you have to also mention nature of tax. So if we select B, then we are saying no, we don't have to mention the nature of tax. That's not the case, right? And some students are saying that it is B. It is not D because it is not that optional for B2B supplies you have to make and for B2C you don't have to. No. Irrespective of whether it is B2B or B2C supply, you have to mention the tax charged. So the correct answer is C because it is more specific, right? It is more specific, and it is also necessary that yes, you need to mention the tax and also mention the nature of tax. So what do we mean by nature of the tax? Is it a good tax or bad tax, that way, or what does it mean? Right. RCM and FCM, no. RCM, FCM is a liability, Ram. We have to mention what is the nature of tax. The nature would mean that whether it is a CGST tax, SGST tax, or IGST tax. So in case of intrastate supply, we have to mention CGST, SGST separately. And if it is interstate, we mention IGST. There is one line which Ram is bringing up very well, that at the end, after the tax amount is mentioned and total invoice value is mentioned, we have to mention generally that GST is payable under reverse charge. Okay, that is one line which we have to mention below the invoice, right? That is one of the very important point, that whenever the recipient has to pay something and the supplier is registered and he's raising an invoice, if the supplier is unregistered, then these conditions will not apply to him because he is not registered, he is not coming under the purview of the law. But a person who is registered and the supply is liable to reverse charge. So in that case, the recipient has to pay, and it's the supplier's duty also to mention that GST is payable under reverse charge on this invoice. So he will not charge the tax. He will mention the value of supply, total bill value, and below he will mention that tax is payable under reverse charge basis. Okay. Thanks, Ram, for bringing that up. Second MCQ. Generally, we have four options. In this, we have five options. Something special in this question. Right. It may be tempting that you can mention D also sometimes. Yeah, Khushi Gupta has said D, that it is invoice, bill of supply and debit note. क्या bill of supply पे हम credit ले सकते हैं? Bill of supply means a supply which is made by a composition supplier or a person who is making an exempt supply, right? He will charge something on that we cannot claim the credit. So bill of supply is not the correct thing. If it is not bill of supply, so it will not be D also, correct? Because all of the above में D चला गया तो D भी चला जाएगा, which means if you exclude bill of supply and if you cleverly answer this, so bill of supply is gone. So of course D is also gone. So left is invoice and debit note, which is covered here. So the correct answer is E. Okay, you can claim the credit basis the invoice and the debit note also, right? This is clear, no? Why debit note? Because debit note is a document which is issued by the supplier when there is a upward revision, or it's like a revised invoice with a higher value. So when you can claim credit on invoice, you can claim credit on debit note also. But bill of supply, we cannot claim a credit. Don't get mistaken, like a lot of people would have heard it or read it as bill of entry. Bill of entry is different and bill of supply is different. On bill of entry, we can claim the credit, but not on bill of supply. Okay, bill of supply is issued by a composition taxpayer or a person who is not charging tax at all. Fine. So correct answer is E, which is A and C, which is a invoice and debit note. Right. What is the last date before which you can claim the credit? We need to issue a credit note. It is on or before the November 30th following the end of the financial year or the date of filing annual return, whichever is earlier. So the correct answer is C, earliest of these two dates. Very nice. Question number 4. Kushi, have you given answer for this or for the previous one? What is your answer? For this, you're saying D. Okay. So Kushi is the only one who's given the correct answer for this. The answer is D. Because for a credit note, right, in the previous question, what you had seen, there is a time limit for credit note. But for a debit note, there is no time limit because debit note means your value is increasing, right? And the supplier can give debit note any point of time. Government is ready to take taxes any point of time. But for credit note, they have to reduce the tax. So for a credit note, there is a time limit. For a debit note, there is no time limit. Correct. There is no due date for debit note. Very important point here. So we have seen generally, okay, debit note, credit notes, both are same document. No. Credit note is a document through which we give it to the customer and our tax liability will come down because we have charged something excess, like I've supplied something and the recipient has rejected it. So I have to give a credit note for it. If I give a credit note, that credit note gets adjusted from my tax liability for this month. right? For the month, in the month when I give a credit note, that month, the value of the credit note can be reduced from my taxable supply. Clear? So if I can reduce it, then the government will restrict it. But a debit note is what? It's a document for any additional value. Like I had to charge 1000 rupees, I've charged only 800. So I can charge 200 any point of time, right? Because government will get the extra revenue. They're saying, okay, if you find a mistake, even after September, even after November, you still raise a debit note, no problem. Okay. So be careful. There is no due date for a debit note. Question number 5. Right. For this, I think I'm getting almost the correct answer. It is 29th September, not B. It is 29th September because date of removal is what is relevant and not when it got delivered. Once I remove it, I have to raise a invoice. Whichever is earlier, yes. Generally, your removal will be earlier, right? Before you deliver it. How will you deliver without removing? So generally, it will be earlier and 90, almost all cases, it will be date of removal itself. From the MCQs also, we can learn a lot of things, right? Like differentiation between what is X and what is Y, like what is debit note, what is credit note. So MCQs also, solving multiple MCQs also will help you because MCQs also can help you in gaining your marks. Answer is C. He has to file nil returns. Yes. So even if there's no transaction, whether a composition taxpayer or a regular taxpayer has to file nil returns. Very nice. Yeah, this is on e-way bill. Mixed answer. You're getting answers that wow, A, B, C, D, all have been answered. This is a tricky question. When there is a mistake or wrong entry in the e-way bill, what will you do? With these options, right? Maybe you have some other options, but within these options, you have to choose a specific one because sometimes we think that the options itself, all the options are correct. Sometimes we may think that all the options are wrong, right? Golti Anil Kumar is saying D. Okay. Now, if somebody is saying D, that ask the officer to edit it, does the officer have the power? Under e-way bill provisions, whatever e-way bill has been raised, you can only cancel it. Okay, there's a time limit. Yes, within that time limit, you can cancel it. But if you do not cancel, you cannot go to the officer and he does not have the power to cancel also. So the only option within these options is if you have a time limit, then cancel the e-way bill and generate a new one. That is more apt, right? That answer is correct for this question. But practically, if you see that no, I've raised a e-way bill and after some time, if I realize there's a mistake, you cannot cancel it. What do? You can't do anything. Because once a e-way bill is generated, it is generated. There's no option to cancel it. Even if you write the officer to edit, he will say, no, I do not have power because it is your e-way bill. You can only access it. Like how in our returns, the officer can only see it. He cannot do any alteration to it. Similarly, a e-way bill, once you have raised, you cannot cancel it. Later on, when the assessment happens, because your return has to be correct and your e-way bill is matching with your returns, you file your returns at least correctly. Okay, saying that, okay, my e-way bill is made as a mistake, but my returns are correct. So your returns has to be correct. If there's a mistake, correct it within time. If not, you cannot correct it. Even A is correct, edit the e-way bill within 20 hours. There's nothing called edit if there's a mistake, okay, a wrong entry. You cannot edit it. Once the e-way bill is generated, you can only cancel it. There is no option to edit the e-way bill. The edit happens only in case the transport vehicle, which is getting transported, and that has got hauled down, right? That's got some accident or it's got stuck for repair or something. Then you can change the vehicle number, right? That was within the validity period, not 24 hours. Say e-way bill is valid for 36 hours because we know the time limit of e-way bill, right? If it is valid, then you can change the transportation number or the vehicle number through which the goods are getting transported. But other details you cannot edit. Okay, so it will not be A, it will be C itself that you have to cancel and generate a new one. Because the nature of mistake is not specified here, so it's a general mistake, right? Tricky answer, yes. Clear, Siddhi? Clear, Sid Sangani. Question number 8. Validity period can be extended. Hmm. How can the validity be extended? Only in case there's a breakdown, you can extend it, not in other cases. The transporter may extend the validity after uploading reasons, correct? So, if the validity expires, right, and only if it is expiring, then first you have to do is this. Because if your validity is expiring and you're still moving, right, then it will be illegal movement because you're moving it without an e-way bill. So you have to first, you're not supposed to move it. Like your goods have not been ready and you have generated the e-way bill before itself. So then you cannot move it. You can say, okay, my old e-way bill is valid. No. If it is expired, then it is not valid. You are not supposed to move the goods, and the transporter may extend the validity period after updating the reason for the extension. So the answer is D, which is both A and B. So you have to do both. Just extending and transporting without a label, no, that's not correct. So you have to do both, stop the movement and extend the validity. Yeah, this is on accounts. Transport may extend the validity after. Yes, yes. Reason must be recorded. Correct. So this is in the chapter of books of accounts and accounts to be maintained under GST. He is a warehouse company. He stores goods for various clients without the GST registration, which means his turnover is less. So he is not required to register. So he's not taken the registration. But he keeps stores the goods for various clients. Okay. Then what records is Ramesh and Sons required to be maintained? He is not registered, mind you. Now what record will he maintain? Yes, even if he is not registered, some may say, okay, not required if they don't cross the threshold limit. No, it is, they have to mention the complete stock and consignment records. Even if they are not registered, a warehouse holder holds the goods of various registered person. So is required to maintain records of the complete stock and the consignment records. This he will have to maintain. So these MCQs will cover up our topic on accounts and records to be maintained. What is the confusion, Shagufta? So helps prevent tax evasion and ensure proper input tax credit flow required during audits or inspection by GST officers. Very true. Very true. What is the confusion here, Ms. Parveen? No confusion, right? ऑप्शन तो ऐसे ही आएंगे कि आपको कंफ्यूजन लगेंगे, तो आपको सोच के करना पड़ेगा। As the goods were supplied by XYZ textiles with provisions of 73 or 74 applied. Okay. Yes, as if the goods were supplied by XYZ textiles with provisions of section 73 or 74 apply. So what happened? XYZ textile, which is located in Jaipur, found that certain goods stored in their godown were unaccounted. Okay. Under section 35(6), how will the tax liability be determined by goods? As if the goods were supplied by XYZ textiles. Okay. Because the goods were there in their godown. So what does 35(6) say is that person who is the holder of those goods, they will be treated as the person who is doing all these things because somebody else might have done, but it is found in their godown. So it is always assumed that the godown or holder, that is in this case XYZ textile, in their godown some goods were found. So if it is unaccounted, then they will be supposed to pay as if they were supplied the goods and tax will be collected by them. 10% or 1000%. Penalty is 10%, Nagraja. Clear, Nagraja? Question number 3. Right. In case of a transporter who is unregistered, frequently moves goods from Delhi to Mumbai, according to GST, what must Mohan Logistics maintain? They should maintain records of transported goods, deliveries, and GSTN of the consignors and consignees for each of the branches. So the correct answer is B. Right. Everybody has given a correct answer. Now clear, Shagufta Parveen. Yes. The correct answer is most of you have given the correct answer. Any more answers expected? Yes. Correct Ram, correct Nagaraja, correct Shavgufta, Nagaraja, Gulika, Lokesh, Sarang, and Gulika. Yes. So the correct answer is B, as a hard copy are in electronically readable format with password and access details provided. Okay. It's not that online here you will not give passwords. No, you have to give passwords and access details. Question number 6. Manual recordings have been mentioned. So what should she adhere to when she's doing maintaining a books or records manually? Right. Sixth one, yes, others. Is it A, ensure records are updated in real time? Ensure data, each entry is serially numbered. Digitally authenticate. Can they authenticate it when the books are recorded manually? Or use an electronic backup for every manual entry? When the entry itself is manual, how can they have a electronic backup? If the records are maintained electronically, then electronic backup will be possible. If the records are maintained manually, right, then what they have to do? When the records are maintained manually, they should ensure that each entry is serially numbered. Can't be cluttered, mixed like that. Manually also is permissible, permitted. Nothing like all the records has to be raised on the system itself. Unless you are crossing the limits for a e-invoicing, then all your records have to be online itself. But otherwise, you have to just ensure that when your books of accounts are maintained manually, then ensure that each entry is a serially numbered entry. Okay. Green Valley Enterprises, a warehousing operator in Chennai, needs a unique enrollment number. Okay. As per what form should they file for enrollment if they are not already registered? Before getting a enrollment. Okay. So what form should they file for enrollment? Very simple. It is enrollment, which means ENROLLMENT. The question asks, what should they file for their enrollment? ENR is only 1 year. So that is the answer. You have to file ENR 01 to get enrolled. Okay. As a warehouse operator. Question number 8. 15-digit ENR, no? Who keeps digital records for his clients. Under GST, if his system undergoes a data failures, what precaution should he take? To do only one thing. Looks practical, but the law, you're taking the law. What does law say? You should ensure the records are regularly backed up and it can be restored if it is lost. That is what the service provider who keeps the digital records has to ensure that he is taking the backup regularly and the data can be restored if it is lost, so that people should not get suffered. Question number 9. Right. All the four. So universal contractors have several ongoing works. Which records they should specifically require to maintain? Name and address of the clients, description of the material used, and payments details for each of these contracts. Answer is B. Correct. What production records is supposed to maintain? A manufacturer. Yes. Correct answer B. You should mention quantitative details of the raw materials, finished goods, waste, and byproducts. Only raw materials and finished goods? No. Everything. Raw materials, finished goods, waste, and byproducts also. Because waste and byproducts, why should he? Because these waste also are sellable. In manufacturing, when you see a ironing machine, iron bending machine, lot of iron which gets wasted, will they just throw it? No. This is a scrap. Such scrap also is sellable. So anything which is sellable on the GST will be payable. On scrap and waste and byproducts also, GST is leviable because GST is on supply. Whether you supply raw goods or finished goods or waste goods, everything what you're supplying where you're getting a consideration, you're satisfying the conditions of supply, then you have to pay GST on that. Question number 11. When multiple locations are there, where should they maintain the records? Yes, they should mention at each additional place of business as listed in the registration. ऐसा नहीं है कि registration में you mention 10 places, but you will mention at only the principal place of business. No, any additional place which you are adding in your GST registration, there also you have to mention the books of accounts. What authentication method will they use? The maintaining records. How do you authenticate it? Siddhi is saying, yeah, serially numbered entries. ओके दैट्स अ कंट्रोल बट ऑथेंटिकेशन मतलब ये आपका ही है, ये कैसे प्रूव होगा? थ्रू डिजिटल सिग्नेचर। जो भी रिकॉर्ड्स आप मेंटेन करते हो उसको आप डिजिटल सिग्नेचर के थ्रू ऑथेंटिकेट करके ऑफिसर को भी दे सकते हो और आपके पास भी रख सकते हो। सो डिजिटल सिग्नेचर इज द मोड ऑफ storing the record which is maintained electronically. Physically you cannot sign, so you have to have a digital signature for such documents which is maintained electronically. Receives consignment from various registered person. Which of the following is not her responsibility? She has to maintain records, yes. She has to maintain records for goods in transit, yes. Provide records on demand, yes. But she should not, is not, the question is not her responsibility. She is not required to obtain the GST registration because her threshold limit is less. So she is not required to obtain the registration. Next question. For samples, there is no GST, right? When you sell any goods as sample, you don't pay GST because there is no consideration. But what is the implication? The supplier can disperse huge stock implying as samples so to wide number of peoples, correct? So that's why there's a control there because in terms of taxes, even if you're making supplies, which is samples, free samples, the input tax credit has to be reversed. Okay, that's the tax implication, that you keep selling your whatever you have to sell. Instead of selling it for consideration, you'll give us free samples. The taxes the government को loss हो जाएगा. So that's why whenever you're making free samples, no consideration, no GST payable, but in input tax credit we had read, no reversals. That is a block credit. That is when you sell something, the ITC for the sample sales is blocked and you have to reverse the input tax credit. So मैंने 1,000 रुपए देके एक गुड्स को मैन्युफैक्चर किए, अब मैं उसे फ्री सैंपल में सेल कर रहा हूँ, करेक्ट. सो 1,000 रुपए पे मैंने जो खरीदे हैं, 1,000 रुपए में जो मैंने खरीदा है उसके ऊपर आईटीसी मैंने ले लिया है, करेक्ट. अभी मैं जब सेल करूंगा तब आईटीसी आई एम जस्ट यूटिलाइजिंग इट, लेकिन आउटपुट पे मुझे गवर्नमेंट को कुछ भी टैक्स पे नहीं कर रहा हूँ. सो दैट्स व्हाई गवर्नमेंट इज सेइंग अगर आपके आईटीसी पे आप ले रहे हो और उसको फ्री सैंपल पे सेल कर रहे हो, तो ये जो 1,000 रुपए के ऊपर आईटी से उसे आपको रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा. That's way that recording is make what record we have to mention is, even if it is free sample, all dealers must record the good disposed as samples, क्योंकि उसके ऊपर जो आईटीसी है उसे ब्लॉक कर दिया जाएगा. इसीलिए इस रिकॉर्ड मेंटेन का रेलेवेंस है. ऐसे नहीं कि बस ऐसे ही कुछ मेंटेन करने के लिए बोल देंगे, कुछ रेलेवेंस डेफिनेटली है. Correct, because prevent misuse of input tax credit and ensure audit compliance. Well portrayed, Nagraj. Clear? Any questions on free samples? Question number 15. Vikram manages a godown for electronic products. If a GST officer demands the record of a particular stock item, which specific detail must Vikram be able to provide? Quick answer, Ram. Very nice. Very good. Kulika, Gayatri, Sarang, Nagaraja. Yes, all are giving the correct answers. Sid, Khushi, yes, good are correct answers. You should be able to give the full particulars, including dispatch, movement, receipt, and disposal history. Great. Now, let's go to the next chapter. MCQs on this chapter. This I think we have covered. Cancel the e-way bill and generate a new one. This is fine. Both A and C. This is also repetition. The goods are not supposed to be moved and transporter may extend the validity period. This is a repeated question. Yeah. This you have to tell me now. This is majorly on e-way bill. Yes. Yes. E-way bill. Part A is to be filled by supplier and part B by the transporter. Okay. But what is the question? Is it required by transporter to furnish the particulars in part A? Generally, no. But yes, only on authorization from a registered person, he is required to fill the part A. Correct? Because if he is given any goods for transportation and details in part A is not filled, then he will have to fill the part A. Only on authorization from the registered person, he can fill the part A. cannot independently generate, correct? But with the authorization, he can generate it. Yeah. Consolidated e-waybill. Right. Not A. Somebody is given answer A. No. The answer is C. E-waybill 2. EWB 2 is a form for consolidated e-waybill. A. People are saying yes, no. Now, one e-waybill can be generated for invoice? No. For one invoice, you can generate multiple e-waybills, right? Say one invoice is raised and it is sent in multiple consignments, right? So you can generate multiple e-waybills because it is not necessary that one invoice will have only one consignment. One invoice can be broken up into various consignments. The say it's a lift. Now, lift is one rate, but I will not be able to send the lift in one lorry. I will have to send it, break it up. It is called as knockdown condition or semi knockdown condition, and send it one part through one truck, second part through second truck, and third in another truck. Right. But the invoice is one because the item is one. In that case, I will send it through multiple consignments, multiple transport vehicles. So that's why even if the invoice is one, I can definitely generate multiple e-waybills.
Sir, my voice audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Sir, if multiple consignments move it together, consolidated bill form GST W2,
No.
but it must
E-waybill,
be that is one individual AW1, sir.
yeah, individual EWB one has to be raised because each consignment, each e-waybill will have the number of the vehicle. Correct. So in one e-waybill, we cannot mention all the vehicles. So we will generate multiple e-waybills. Now, consolidation of e-waybills is not from the supplier's perspective. When the transporter is moving goods of multiple people, then he will, to give show it to the officer, he will consolidate the multiple e-way bills. Okay. So only for his convenience, the option of consolidate e-way bill is there. But from a supplier's perspective, we cannot issue a consolidated e-way bill. We have to raise a individual e-way bill EWB 11.
Sir, but to move it together, sir.
Still, the vehicles are different, right? The vehicles are different. So for each vehicle, you generate a e-way bill. And there is no option for you to raise a consolidated e-way bill at all. E-way bill can be consolidated? No. The question on consolidate e-way bill, what we saw is from the transporter's perspective, say a courier agency. Now, a courier is transporting goods of multiple people, right? In that case, they have an option to consolidate the multiple e-way bills because they have to show the e-way bill to the inspecting officers. There they can say instead of showing so many e-way bills, they will consolidate all of these e-way bills and show it to the officer. That is only for that purpose you have a consolidated e-way bill. If you transport multiple consignments together, still if it is through different vehicles, then you have to raise a different e-way bills.
Okay, sir.
Clear, Nagaraj?
Okay, sir.
Items which are exempted from e-way bill. Which are these exempted? Right. Postage bags are exempted, currencies are exempted, used personal and household effects are exempted. So the correct answer is B. Yes. E-way bill can be generated when a dealer is opting for composition scheme, makes her interstate supply. Will the e-way bill portal allow a composition dealer to raise a e-way bill for a supply to another state? C, A or B? बेसिकली से वी नो दैट कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम का कंडीशन ही ये है कि वो इंटरस्टेट सप्लाई कर ही नहीं सकता है सो द पर्सन हु इज ऑप्टेड फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन ही कैन नॉट मेक एनी इंटरस्टेट सप्लाई सो फॉर interstate supply this is the option as the composition scheme is available only for dealers doing intrastate supplies he cannot generate a e-way bill for a interstate supply वो interstate supply कर ही नहीं सकता है when the goods are supplied by an unregistered person to a registered person, who shall generate an e-way bill? it be jurisdictional range officer? No. Unregistered person has to take temporary registration? No. Not required? No. Because when a supplier is supplying it to a registered person, you can raise a e-way bill for outward supply for in or inward supply. The e-way bill has an option to raise a e-way bill for a inward supply. So when a e-way bill shall be generated by the registered person, provided the registered person is known to the unregistered person at the time of commencement, right? If the supplier doesn't know, then not required, because supplier is unregistered and he does not know the customer, or if it is to an unregistered customer, okay, then it is not required. But when the registered person is known to the unregistered person, before commencement, he will communicate it to him. He will communicate the invoice numbers, the invoice details, and the vehicle number. So the registered person's responsibility. If you're supplying it to a registered person, then the registered person has to raise it. If he doesn't raise, then his goods can be said that generate supplied without e-way, and it will be liable for confiscation. Conditions under which an e-way bill generated gets cancelled. Right. Both A and C. If e-way bill can be cancelled if either goods are not transported or are not transported as per the details, and the e-way bills can be cancelled within 24 hours from the date of from the time of generation. So answer is both A and B. In case where goods are sent by the principal in one state to a job worker in another state, who shall generate an e-way bill? Yes, principal only, right? So principal only will raise the e-way bill. Will the goods be delivered to recipient in case of transportation by railways if the e-way bill is not produced by the recipient? B. Correct. So for transporting of goods by railways, so there is no like a officer who can inspect it. Like normal vehicles, when you transport by road, there are squads who can check it. Like GST officers can check it whether you're carrying a e-way bill or no. But in railways, they cannot check. That's why railway has made a system that they can deliver the goods only to the recipient, provided a e-way bill is generated. If e-way bill is not produced, then they will not hand over the goods. What are the consequences if the goods are not transported as per the details furnished? Then e-way bill gets cancelled within 24 hours. Not send it to us. You have raised the e-way bill, you have not transported it. So your e-way bill will get cancelled automatically within 24 hours if you do not transport it. Last question. The unique number generated on the e-way bill portal will be provided to whom? C. Correct. It will be provided to the supplier, recipient, and transporter. Everybody will get the e-way bill details because you will mention the GST of the supplier, recipient, and definitely the transporter. All the three will get it, right? So based on these MCQ, we understood that major things we know, some things we do not know. So if there are topics which specifically you want to address, please mention it. What we'll do is now we are 7:15. We'll take a break of 10 minutes and then continue the revision. All MCQs are completed. We will go back to the revision part now. Okay, we'll take a break of 10 minutes now. Okay. So, after the break, so what we discussed in MCQ and what are the pointers I get is on casual taxable person and NRTP. Okay. So, what is the question? I think we had a chart which was mentioned on what is the difference between a casual taxable person and an NRTP. But basically, I'll tell you, Ram, if you are there, who is a casual taxable person? A person, say from Tamil Nadu, you are coming to Bangalore for an exhibition, right? If you are coming to Bangalore to open up your full shop, then you're not a casual taxable person because if you come here and set up a shop, then you have a fixed establishment. So you will take registration in Bangalore because you're permanently staying here. But if you're coming for a temporary purpose, then you will register as a casual taxable person, wherein you will say you're coming for exhibition of say 2 months, not so much generally, but okay, for whatever reasons, the registration is given for a period of 3 months. Okay, you're having a temporary place or a say permanent place also, but you're sure that you will go back within 3 months' time. So you will take registration as a casual taxable person. You have to apply for registration beforehand and then start the operation. But in case of normal registration, you have a time limit, right? Like 30 days once you cross the threshold limit. For a casual taxable person, you do not have a time limit. 7 days before you come, you have to take your registration. For the registration, the requirement is that you have to make a pre-deposit because when you will go off, we don't know. The officer also doesn't know. So they've said that your registration is compulsory. Before coming itself, you have to take registration. I have that slide. I will show it to you. 40. Okay. You're not having a fixed place of business. So there's no turnover limit. Okay. So even if you don't make sales, to start your business, you have to take registration. Okay. So you have to take registration beforehand itself. PAN is definitely necessary. And you should apply 5 days before commencement of the business. They will give you a registration. The limit is for 3 months. Then it can get extended to further 3 months. But for a NRTP, he's coming from outside India, same like a casual taxable person, but casual taxable person is coming from another state, or NRTP is coming from another country. The main difference between that is between these two is that NRTP is coming from outside India, CTP is coming from another state. They will get same temporary registration. The another second difference is PAN will be compulsory for CTP. For NRTP, his passport will be sufficient. Input tax credit, a casual taxable person can claim. A NRTP can claim credit of only the goods what he's getting from outside India. For locally, whatever he's purchasing, on that he will not get the credit. That is the difference between CTP and NRTP. Sir, composition taxpayer for free sample need or not to maintain the record. See, he's a composition taxpayer. If he makes free samples also, he will have to take the registration. Deposit of casual tax person is refundable if less than tax payable? Yes. So the advance, whatever he pays the taxes in advance, the deposit, what he makes, that gets adjusted with the tax payable. If there is less tax which is payable than the advance, he will get the refund. Yes. Handicraft exempt, what is your question, Nagraja? E-way bill. Yes. I will show you that slide 148. Right. So e-way bill, when the value is less than 50,000 rupees, also you will have to generate a e-way bill. Generally, e-way bill is not required when the value is less than 50,000 rupees. Okay. Okay. But in certain cases, even if the value is 50,000 rupees, less than 50,000 rupees, you have to generate the e-way bill. When are those cases? That I'll just explain you here, that if it is interstate transfer of goods by a principal to a job worker, within the state, they don't have to. But when they make interstate movement from the principal to the job worker, then they have to compulsory raise a e-way bill. Second is when there is a interstate transfer of handicraft goods by a person who is exempted from obtaining registration, a person who is making an interstate supply. Generally, when you make an interstate supply, you have to take compulsory registration, correct? Because in the registration, we will see that compulsory registration is required, and that 20 lakhs limit for goods, for services, and 40 lakhs for goods, that will not apply when you're making any interstate supply. Okay. But for handicraft goods, they've said that even if you're making handicraft goods supply, until you reach that limit, you can transfer interstate without registration. Okay. So that is the special benefit given to a person who's dealing in handicraft goods, saying that up to the limit of 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs, depending on which state you are, you can transfer it without registration. But others, other than handicraft goods, can they do it? No. If you're selling pens within the state you're selling, you will get the threshold limit of 20 lakh rupees. But if you're making any, say, one set of pen, you're doing interstate sale, then you have to take compulsory registration. But for handicraft goods, they've said that if you're making sales up to the threshold limit of 20 lakhs and 40 lakhs, you can do a interstate sale, no problem, because handicraft goods are exempted and they want to encourage the sale of handicraft goods. So interstate transfer of handicraft goods up to the limit of 20 lakhs and 40 lakhs is permitted, but they want to have a control. That's why they've said if you are doing that below the above, though you have to definitely do a e-way bill, but below that also, if you're doing below the limits, you're not registered, then also you have to take a e-way bill. You don't have to pay tax, but you have to raise a e-way bill. So he's not registered. How will he raise a e-way bill? They will give him a temporary registration number, temporary number for raising a e-way bill. Based on that, he will have to raise a e-way bill for any interstate movement. Then third is a registered person or the transporter may at his option generate e-way bill, saying that your limit is less than 50,000, we know, but I want to raise a e-way bill. I want to have a control on the movement of goods. Yes, voluntarily also, like how you have voluntary registration, like that, voluntary e-way bill compliance also you can do it. Right? Any more questions? Okay. Now we'll touch upon the main aspects on these topics of registration, tax invoice, credit note and debit notes, and accounts and records. Why registration is required? Simple theoretical thing, but very important is it has three effects. You can legally collect, you are legally recognized as a person, recognizing a person as a supplier. If you are not registered, then you cannot collect tax. If you are registered only, then you can collect tax. That is the first thing. A person who is registered only can collect the tax and he can claim any credit of tax. If you're unregistered, you're not having any sales, but you're making a lot of purchases, you have a lot of expenses, like startups, they have crores of money which is being spent as expenses and they don't have any supply. Can they claim the credit or they cannot claim the credit? There's no outward supply. There's only purchases and expenses which they incur, right? Of course, on their purchases and expense, GST will be charged by the vendors, right? They're not making any supply, no revenue to the government. Can they claim the credit or no? If people are tired with MCQ, so you're not answering or you don't know the answer. Shafu- Shagufta and Somesh are saying no, we cannot claim the credit because they're not making any sales, so they can't claim the credit. Okay. Gayatri is saying yes, they can claim if they are registered and for business. Yes. Somesh is saying no. But the answer is they can claim a credit because the definition of business does not mean only sale. Business includes anything which is done for the purpose of the business. You may not be selling the goods now, but you will sell it in the future, right? The business itself in such a way that as soon as you start, you will not sell it. You will have to do a lot of research. You have to spend a lot of time on the idea. You have to develop the product. A lot of research and development goes in. All of that is for what purpose? Is for the purpose of business. Whether you make profit or loss, it is for your business. Your profit does not mean profit. Business does not mean profit always. It can include loss also, right? In the future, you will do business, but today you are doing this activity of purchase and trading and expenses for the purpose of business. As long as it is for the purpose of business, you can claim the credit. There is no restriction, right? But to claim the credit, you have to be registered. You're saying, okay, I don't have sale, I will not take registration. You will lose out all the credit. You have to take the registration and then incur all these expenses. Then you can claim the credit. If you're not registered, crores of rupees will get wasted. You will not be able to claim the credit. So, as a GST consultant, you have to give advice to your clients, your friends who are getting becoming a startups that take the registration. You may not have sales, but whatever raw materials, whatever fixed assets, laptops, other expenses, whatever you incur, if the supplier is charging you GST, you can claim the credit. Take the registration first. Without registration, we can only claim credit under RCM. No, still you cannot, because to pay RCM, you have to be registered. And if you're not registered, how will you pay? So to be claim that RCM credit also, you have to register, pay it, only then you can claim it. What are the conditions for registration? There's no centralized registration. Every state from where you make a taxable supply, you have to register. You are registered in Bangalore. You will take registration here. You set up a branch office in Hyderabad. You will take the registration there and supply it, right? So from every state where you're making supply, you will take the registration. Now from Bangalore, another question. From Bangalore, you're making supply to Jammu and Kashmir. And from Bangalore, you're making supply to, to your branch in Hyderabad. From there, you're selling it. Branch is registered. Now, the goods what you're supplying from Bangalore to Jammu and Kashmir, should you take registration in Jammu and Kashmir or no? No. Kushi is saying no. Lokesh also saying no. No fixed. What does that mean, Nagraj? Somesh is saying yes, you have to take the registration. Correct. So you do not have to take registration because you can make taxable supply to any state from one state. That's why there is a concept of intra-state supply and interstate supply. Wherever your customer is there, you don't have to register it. where you have a place from where you will supply. There you have to register. Like in our example, Hyderabad, from Hyderabad, I'm selling. So I will take the registration there. But Jammu and Kashmir, I'm supplying it from Bangalore to Jammu and Kashmir. So I don't have to take registration in every state where my customer is located, where my goods are moving. Wherever goods are moving, it can move with tax, right? Because you will be charging IGST, that is sufficient. You do not have to take registration in every place. But this is not a casual taxable person also, Nagraj, because you're not supplying it from there. You're supplying it to there. So where from you're supplying from, you're supplying still from Bangalore itself. So you do have to take registration from the place where you're supplying and not to the place where you're supplying it to. That's the difference. Clear? Okay. Uh, Threshold limit for registration now is, what will you consider the limits? So first is the limits. The limit says that where you are having the limits is basically three: 10 lakh for both goods and services, 20 lakh for goods and services, and the third category is 20 lakhs for services and 40 lakhs for goods. Now, this categorization is this TNMM, which is Tripura, Nagaland, Mizoram, and Manipur. TNMM states, you will have limit as 10 lakhs. UP must states, that is Uttarakhand, Puducherry, Telangana. UP is for Uttarakhand, Puducherry, M for Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, and Telangana. First is TNMM, second is UP must. First category is for 10 lakhs, second category is 20 lakhs, and all other states, the threshold limit is 20 lakhs for services and 40 lakhs for goods. Okay. Now, how do you determine this limit? This limit is for the aggregate turnover. Now, how do you calculate the aggregate turnover? That is very well explained here, that aggregate turnover is the value of all outward supplies, that is taxable supplies, exempt supplies, export supplies, interstate supply, all of that is the value of aggregate supply of person having the same pan across all over India. So you will not consider what is the turnover only in one state. You will see the aggregate turnover all over India. If that limit crosses the threshold limit of 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, and 40 lakhs, then you have to register. So you will include all the supplies and you will exclude the taxes and value of inward supplies. On RCM, we have to pay tax, sir. Yes, you have to pay, but it will not be calculated in the calculation of aggregate turnover. But sir, for B2B registration is mandatory. Registration is mandatory for the receiver, not for you. Okay. If the recipient is registered, you are unregistered, you can still supply it without GST because you are not registered. But once you make an interstate supply, we'll see under the compulsory registration that if you're making an interstate supply, then you have to take a compulsory registration. Exempted supply more than threshold does not require registration. Yes, correct, Golti. Exempted supply, there is an exemption which says that if you're making only exempt supply purely, then registration is not required. Clear on this aggregate turnover, you have to see the limit, not in that state, completely across India, you have to see the limit. Okay. Now the concept of compulsory registration, that even if your turnover, aggregate turnover is below the threshold limit, still you will have to register because this is a concept of compulsory registration. The first amongst this is if you're making any interstate taxable supply. If you're making any interstate taxable supply, you have to register it. Exception is interstate taxable services. If you're making taxable services, then they've given a relaxation that you don't have to register. But if it is interstate movement of goods, then you will have to register compulsory.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
Shagufta. Yes.
सर मैं पूछ रही थी कि 10 लाख गुड्स और सर्विस दोनों के लिए TNMM का है और 20 लाख सर्विस दोनों के लिए बाकी अदर स्टेट के लिए, इधर पे जो दवा है 20 लाख फॉर सर्विस, जम्मू कश्मीर, असम और हिमाचल प्रदेश, ये इसके लिए। और बाकी अदर्स के लिए दोनों गुड्स और सर्विस दोनों में 20 और 40 है।
हाँ, ये सभी के लिए है। 10 lakhs TNMM स्टेट्स के लिए, गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज दोनों के लिए लिमिट है। और यूपी मस्त स्टेट्स के लिए 20 lakhs, वो दोनों गुड्स और सर्विसेज के लिए है। और बाकी सभी स्टेट में इन 4 और 6, 10 जगहों को छोड़ के बाकी सब जगहों पे लिमिट है। अगर आप सिर्फ सर्विस प्रोवाइड करते हो तो आपको 20 क्रॉस होते ही आपको रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना है। लेकिन आप सिर्फ गुड्स में डील करते हो तो फिर आपको 40 लाख सेल्स टर्न करोगे, उसके बाद रजिस्ट्रेशन लेने की जरूरत पड़ेगी।
ओके सर।
So what if the part of the product is exempt and part of the product is taxable as a mixed supply? Then how to consider the threshold? So in case of a mixed supply gold tea, whatever is the GST rate for the highest rate applicable, that we will apply. So we have seen under mixed supply, right? That the concept is if you're selling one that's exempt, one is 5%, one is 18%, or say only 0% and 5% you're selling, then 5% will apply on the whole product itself. Okay. We were discussing on, let's go back to compulsory registration. That person making interstate supply except interstate services. Interstate services, you can do it up to 20 lakhs. Once you cross the threshold, then you will have to register. But up to threshold, you can do interstate services. There is a relaxation there. And notified handicraft goods that we have seen already. Casual taxable person making taxable supplies. A CTP has to take compulsory registration. Only exception is handicraft goods. And person required to pay tax under reverse charge. Somebody said that, sir, we can pay reverse charge and claim the credit. To pay the reverse charge, if you take any services from a person who is liable for reverse charge and you have to pay the reverse charge on that, then you have to take a compulsory registration. Exception is person making exclusively outward supply liable to RCM, right? Except who is doing only RCM. So I'm doing only reverse charge like a lawyer, right? He's making only supplies on which reverse charge is payable. He need not take registration, but the recipient will have to take compulsory registration if he's taking any services from RCM, if he's taking any services from a lawyer, if he's taking any services from any other person, right, who is unregistered and he has to pay. He is a registered person. His limit is below the limits, but the reverse charge notification says he has to pay under reverse compulsory registration. Okay. NRTP, like how a CTP has to take, like that NRTP also. E-commerce operator, person who is selling others on the e-commerce portal, then that e-commerce person has to take compulsory registration. TDS deductor, TCS deductor, input service distributor, agent, and any person supplying online money gaming from a place outside India. This is a new concept that online games, online money games are there, not just online games. Online money gaming is there. A person who is outside India, is not coming to India at all. He will also have to take compulsory registration by appointing an agent in India and taking the registration. Clear on this concept of compulsory registration? Then another compulsory registration is e-commerce operator and a person who supply goods through an e-commerce operator. However, the limit of 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs can be claimed, but only to such person who is making intrastate supply of goods through e-commerce. If you're making interstate supply of goods through e-commerce, then the limit will not apply. You have to compulsory take registration. But if you're doing any supply of intrastate transaction through e-commerce, then the limit, you can stop registration till you touch the threshold limit. Then there are persons who are not liable for registration, who person who are exclusively in the business of supplying goods, which is not liable to tax. जैसे petroleum products है. Petrol is outside the GST. Correct? Petroleum is not liable to GST. petrol is liable to other taxes. GST में taxable 5 petroleum products पे नहीं लगता है. So if he's supplying only petroleum products, turnover crores हो गया है, limit cross हो गया है, everything. Still, registration is not required because he's dealing in goods which is not liable to tax under the GST. VAT लगता है, correct. And alcoholic liquor for human consumption, उसके ऊपर भी GST नहीं है. So in such situation, he will not take registration. And charitable trust, who is engaged in charitable activities, उनका भी कितना भी sales हो जाए, they don't have to register because उनके लिए exemption है. Then, who else is not required to take registration? A agriculturist. As long as he is supplying goods which is cultivating or production out of the cultivation of land, GST is not required. Who is an agriculturist? Definition is a person who is undertaking cultivation of the land by his own labor, either by the labor of his family or by a servant on wages or hired labor under personal supervision. That is basically, he should not outsource the work. He should be doing it, or he should be having a laborer who is doing work on his behalf. Then he's called an agriculturist. Then who else is not required? Person who is specifically notified. Person making only RCM supply, like a lawyer, a GTA, they are not required to take registration. Exception is supply of metal scraps. Metal scrap जो supply करते हैं, that is also under reverse charge. But they have notified that a person who is supplying metal scrap, he need not take registration if he's only supplying goods which is liable to RCM. But they've said that no, this exception will not apply to you. If you're dealing in metal scrap, the threshold limit will not apply. You have to take compulsory registration. Okay. Then person making interstate taxable supply up to 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs for 10 mm, they are also not required. This is only supply of services. Interstate supply of goods के लिए नहीं होगा. Interstate supply of services के लिए threshold limit मिल जाएगा. Then persons goods through e-commerce and notified handicraft goods, these people need not take registration. And another important thing is commission agent for sale of agriculture produce, they don't have to take compulsory registration. This we have explained, intrastate supply through e-commerce operator. Now the registration aspect, that person, once you do a registration, what will be your effective date? So if you are applying it for the registration on time, when should you apply? Once you cross the threshold limit, within 30 days, you have to apply. Have you applied? Yes, I've applied on time. Then the effective date of registration will be the date on which he becomes liable for registration. And if you apply after 30 days, that you have delayed your registration, then your effective date of registration will be the date of grant of registration. Okay, let's take an example to understand this. I am a dealer of watches. Okay. Now, say 2025, I started my business on May. On 1st May, I started my business. Now my turnover in till July itself, I'm handling high-end watches, and I am not in these TNMM states. I'm in a general category state. By July, my turnover is 35 lakhs. Okay. By August, it is August 31st. My turnover is 40 lakhs. By when should I apply for registration? By July. Okay. Within September 30th. Correct. Not July, Nagaraja. Once you touch the threshold limit, within 30 days you have to apply. So you have to apply by 30th September. Okay. So I have applied for registration on 25th September. Okay. So what will be my effective date of registration? Applied for registration on 25th September, but I got the registration certificate on 20th of October. What is my effective date of registration? Twentieth October? No. My effective date of registration, I've applied for registration within 30 days. So my effective date of registration will be the date of my application when I'm due for registration. So I've applied on time. So my effective date of registration is 25th. Even though I will get the registration certificate on 20th October, but my effective date will be 25th September. Okay. Second case, I have applied for registration on 5th of October. And my registration certificate is given on 20th of October. What will be my effective date of registration? Right. Sorry, my effective date of registration will not be 25th September. In this case, it will be 31st July itself, 31st August. Because I have applied on time, right? If I've applied on time, I will get the benefit. So it says, right, the day on which I became liable to registration. When did I become liable to register? In my case, I became liable on the date when I crossed the threshold limit. So that benefit, I will get it here. Since I've applied on time, I will get the benefit. And since I've applied on time, I will get the benefit. But in second case, if I've applied late, my effective date of registration will be date of grant of registration. So the effect registration is granted on 20th October. So I will get it on the 20th of October. So what is the implication? A person who applied on time from 31st August onwards, whatever purchases he's making, he will claim the credit. He can claim the credit. So person who is applied late just by 5 days, उसे पूरे credit नहीं मिलेगा. He will not get the credit from 30th August. He will get the credit from 20th October because as we said, one of the criteria to claiming ITC is you should be registered. Registration के पहले जो purchase करते हैं उसका credit नहीं मिलेगा. He will get the benefit. So August बोलते September and October, 50 days ka purchases, whatever he's making, he will not get the benefit. But a person who's applied on time, he will get the benefit of claiming credit from the date when he crossed the threshold limit. Got it? That's the reason applying for registration is so very important. Turnover on 30th August is exact 40 lakhs. The turnover should be crossed. That will be probably 31st October. Yeah, that's fine. So whenever it's crossed, right? So 40 lakhs, say on that night itself is crossed. So you can consider 30th, 1st August itself. No problem. Threshold limit is 40 lakhs. Yes. For goods, it is 40 lakhs Somesh. Okay, now HSN. What does the HSN means? Every good which we see has some HSN, right? 20 lakhs is for services, Nagraja, for Karnataka, and 40 lakhs for goods. Okay. So every invoice, what you mention, you have to mention the HSN code. How many digits of HSN code you'll mention? In the preceding year, if your turnover crosses 5 crores, then for any B2B supplies, what you're mentioning, you will mention 4-digit HSN code. For B2C supplies, you don't have to mention. But if your turnover crosses 5 crores, then you have to mention compulsorily 6-digit HSN code. Now, the concept of e-invoicing. What is the basic concept of e-invoicing? It is very simple that once you make any supply, right, you will then raise a normal invoice when you're making any supply. I'll just show you the portal. Huh. When you're making any supply, you will raise a invoice and that will get reported when you file your returns. But government wanted some more control because people are raising invoice, not supplying. People are not supplying, raising an invoice. Such things are happening. So to have a control on it, they said that once you raise an invoice, your physical invoice, you have to upload the detail on a portal, which is called as this e-invoicing portal. What will happen in this e-invoicing portal? You will mention your details of your GST number and other things. What is the value of the goods and things like that? How you raise an invoice, all those details you'll give on the e-invoicing portal. Once you give the details on the e-invoicing portal, it will get captured and your invoice will be e-invoice. It will become an electronic invoice. Instantly, it gets updated. So through that, what happens? Once the invoice is generated and it's gone to the portal, it becomes a public repository, right? Then you cannot alter it and you have to make a supply. So whatever movement of goods are happening, it is getting authenticated on the portal. That's why the threshold limit they have keep reducing. Now, even if you have a turnover above 5 crore rupees, you have to raise a e-invoice so that your transaction are getting captured on a real-time basis. So that later on, if the invoice is torn, invoice you're deleting it off can't happen. In your system, if you delete it, it will still be there on the e-invoicing portal. That's the reason any fraudulent transaction, what has been done, that will get stopped. That was the main objective of bringing this e-invoice into the system. Okay. Next is on the time limit within which you can raise a credit note and debit note. Time limit for raising credit note is 30th November following the end of the financial year in which such supply or the date of furnishing. This we had seen in the MCQ, right? For credit note, there is a time limit. For debit note, there is no time limit. Declare it in any month during which you raise a debit note. Whichever month you find there's a mistake and you have to make an upward revision. What is a debit note? Debit note is for increase in the value. Credit note is for reduction in the value. Okay. Any reduction in the value, we will raise a credit note. For any increase in the value, we will raise a debit note. Now, accounts. What are the accounts to be mentioned? Where should the account be maintained firstly? Which is the place you have to maintain your accounts? At the principal place of business. Where is your principal place of business? There you will maintain all your accounts. The responsibility is also cast on the owner or operator of a warehouse. That's why we are seeing that NCQ, that a person who's not registered, but he's having a godown or a warehouse. The responsibility is cast on him also to maintain the books of accounts. At least the records with respect to movement of goods, not like full details like how a registered person keeps it, but such goods which is with respect to movement of the goods. That much a warehouse keeper has to keep it. And accounts can be maintained in what way? Should it be manual, digital? Both ways are permitted. It can be in electronic or non-electronic form also. That is manually also they can keep your books of accounts. There's no prescribed format, like books should be maintained only in Tally, only in QuickBooks. No. Any of the software you use, that basic information should be there. Like you should have a trial balance, balance sheet, P&L account, have the input tax register, have a detail of whatever supplies you're making. Give it in any format that is permitted. Then there are various persons, right, for whom account has to be maintained independently. Like a person who is a registered, like an agent, what details he will require, whatever the particulars of goods is received from the principal, whatever is the statement he's giving to the principal, details of accounts furnished to the every principal. So each category of person, separate books of accounts are specified that has to be maintained by each person. Debit note and credit note when raised. Can you explain it again, please? Yes, Shagufta. I made a supply to you. Okay. Now that supply may kuch defect tha. Then I will reduce the value. That is one instance of credit note. Then another instance is I've made a supply, but we have a conflict with the price. You're saying the price is more, reduce the price. Then I will raise a credit note. So all this reduction, either for quality issues or for dispute, when I'm reducing the price, I will raise a credit note. Okay. Now that you understood, credit note is for reducing the price, reducing the value what was there in the original invoice. That is credit note. Now, when I supply something to you and the value has to get increased, means मैंने इनवॉइस जो है वो गलत रेस किया था, आपको 1 लाख का देना था, मैंने 80,000 का ही रेस किया है, तो इट इज अपवर्ड रिविजन, ऊपर की तरफ जा रहा है। सेल प्राइस जो मैंने लिखा था वो गलत है, उसको ऊपर बढ़ाना है, राइट। सो 80,000 था, उसको 1 लाख करना है, तो मैं सेल वैल्यू को बढ़ा रहा हूं, तो गवर्नमेंट को टैक्स ज्यादा आएगा। तो जो भी इंक्रीज हो रहा है मेरे ओरिजिनल इनवॉइस से, उसे कहते हैं, जो रिवीजन करूंगा मैं वो डेबिट नोट के थ्रू करूंगा। सो अपवर्ड मूवमेंट जो होगा वो डेबिट नोट के थ्रू होगा। जब मैंने वैल्यू इनवॉइस में कम रेस किया है और उसको बढ़ाना है, उसके लिए मैं डेबिट नोट रेस करूंगा। और इनवॉइस जो रेस किया है उसको घटाना है, उसके लिए मैं क्रेडिट नोट रेस करूंगा। डिस्काउंट के लिए भी मैं क्रेडिट नोट रेस करूंगा, क्योंकि मैंने 1 लाख पे आपको भेजा है, अब मेरे को 5,000 रुपए डिस्काउंट देना है, दैट ऑल्सो विल बी थ्रू अ क्रेडिट नोट। ठीक है। Now then, agent, a manufacturer. What will a manufacturer maintain? He'll maintain the quantitative details of raw materials. This is all general knowledge in terms of accounts, I would say. Don't have to remember it so much. Just see what will a manufacturer do. He will have the records of raw materials. He will have to control on it. He will have to have the control of details of how much waste is being maintained. So general requirements, what is required for a registered person. Apart from that, specific documents will be required by special people, like a manufacturer, trader, agent, casual taxable person, such cases. Now let's move on to e-way bill. Generally, what do you think of e-way bill? When you think of e-way bill, what comes in my mind is this, that a lorry is moving and they will have to carry along with them a e-way bill. Okay? E-way bill सोचते मुझे ये ध्यान आता है कि whenever there is a movement of goods, e-way bill will be required. Now, whether it is for a supply, non-supply, whatever it is, any movement of goods, what has happened? It could be for non-GST supply also, right? How can it be? Say, what can it be a non-GST supply? I'm moving the goods for my warehousing purposes. कि मेरा हेड ऑफिस यहाँ पे है, बहुत सारा स्टॉक यहाँ पे आ गया, आई डोंट हैव प्लेस, आई एम मूविंग इट टू माई वेयर हाउस, वहां पे स्टोर करूंगा, जब चाहिए वहां से सेल कर दूंगा या आई विल ब्रिंग इट हियर. So is there a sale happening? Because it's my same entity having no separate GST number. So for that movement also GST e-way bill is required, because any movement of goods. So e-way bill is for quick and easy movement of goods, not for collecting tax. To have control on the goods, I will raise the e-way bill, not for the purpose of calculating GST. When I transport goods from my head office to my godown, then I will have to raise a e-way bill. Okay. And movement from one registered person to another registered person, from one registration to another registration, any movement what I'm doing, I have to raise a e-way bill. When should I raise? Prior to movement of goods. Before the movement of the goods, I have to raise a e-way bill, which would inform each transaction details to the tax department. What all are the information that we'll see now? How will I raise it? I will raise it on this portal called ewaybillgst.gov.in. For GST registration and returns, you have gst.gov.in. For e-way bill, you have ewaybillgst.gov.in. What are the benefits of the e-way bill? Physical interface, it will facilitate faster movement. Okay, these are the advantages. But understand that who will have to raise a e-way bill? If supplier is registered and he undertakes to transport the goods, who is causing the movement? They will have to raise a e-way bill. For supplier is registered and he is undertaking to transport the goods, saying that, okay, I will ensure that the goods reach to the customer. He is ensuring that the goods will be reaching to the customer. So who is the person who is causing the movement? The movement is caused by the supplier. Supplier has to raise the e-way bill. Second, in case the recipient undertakes to the transport, saying that I will keep the goods ready, you, that's the customer or the buyer, has to come and move the goods. I will only keep the goods ready. So in this case, the movement is caused by the recipient. The recipient will have to raise a e-way bill. And in case the goods are supplied by an unregistered supplier, then the movement shall be said to be caused by such recipient if the recipient is known at the time of commencement of movement of goods. So even though I'm told that I will deliver the goods to you, but if I'm unregistered, it is always the responsibility of the recipient, with the condition that the recipient is known at the time of commencement of the goods. So a registered person, supply is made by a registered seller to a registered buyer. Who has to raise? E-way bill can be raised by either parties. Either the supplier can raise it or a recipient can raise it, because both are registered. Generally, it will be the seller itself. But if seller says, no, it is not my responsibility to transport the goods, then it is the recipient's responsibility. Then recipient can raise it. But generally, in case of both are registered, either of them can raise it. The supplier is registered, recipient is unregistered. Correct? It can be possible, right? That you are a registered person. A person who is not registered is buying goods from you. Then whose responsibility is? The registered seller has to generate the e-way bill. तो जो सप्लायर रजिस्टर्ड है, अगर दोनों रजिस्टर्ड है, दोनों में से कोई एक, अगर सप्लायर रजिस्टर्ड है तो उसको ही रेस करना है. लेकिन सप्लायर अनरजिस्टर्ड, रिसिपिएंट रजिस्टर्ड है, then movement is said to be caused by the registered recipient and e-way bill is to be generated by the registered recipient only. सिंपल है, जो रजिस्टर्ड है वो रेस करेगा e-way bill. If both supplier and recipient are unregistered, then who will register? That's a good question. That's the next question I was asking. If supplier is also red and recipient also is red, that combination I have not put, that is from unregistered seller to unregistered buyer, who will raise the e-way bill? Yes. Generally, e-way bill will not be required, but the transporter will have that responsibility to raise the e-way bill if the value exceeds 50,000 rupees. If the value of the goods is less than 50,000, then e-way bill will not be required because the threshold limit is there. Yeah, intrastate concept will not apply because he's not registered. He's free to do anything, right? He can make interstate supply, but if he is making any interstate supply, he will have to compulsory register. That's true. But he's not registered. Then who will raise the e-way bill? The transporter will raise the e-way bill. But good concept, Somesh, you have brought in that yes, if as a person who is unregistered is making interstate supply, then he will have to take compulsory registration. अब वो registration नहीं ले रहा है, लेकिन goods transport कर रहा है, तो e-way bill तो transporter को ही बनाना पड़ेगा. But yes, the liability is there on him to register it. I think that's the reason the e-way bill concept is there to find out or to track such people that who are doing interstate supply, but they are not registering it. So definitely, if they are caught, the registration liability will come on him. Value, what is the consignment value of 50,000? We will see what is the value as per section 15, that is transaction value, and what is the value declared in the invoice. It will exclude the value of exempt supply. Okay, exempt supply value will not consider for the purpose of 50,000 rupees threshold limit. In case of a bill to ship to model, right? Like generally we have seen, right? This example of bill to and ship to. So in this case, who will have to raise the e-way bill? ITC, we know, right? ITC, we are clear that ITC will be taken by Maruti traders, even though goods are getting delivered to Prime Hardware, right? Even though goods are getting shipped to other place, the person on whose behalf the goods are moving, he will take the credit. But how about e-way bill? Who will raise the e-way bill? Who will raise the e-way bill and from what place to what place? Both the questions. Rhyme to Ganesh. Wrong. Ganesh traders. Okay. Supplier from Maharashtra to Tamil Nadu. Okay. Ganesh traders is the supplier. And recipient. Is it Prime Hardwares or Maruti traders? Yes. So Prime Hardware is nowhere in the picture because it is getting delivered to him on the instruction of Maruti traders. So Ganesh trader knows that he is delivering it. So Ganesh traders can raise the e-way bill or Maruti traders can raise. Prime Hardwares will not be the person because Prime Hardwares is getting the goods on the request or on the instructions of Maruti traders. So Ganesh traders will ideally raise a e-way bill. If Ganesh trader doesn't raises it, the responsibility will be on Maruti traders. So in case of a bill to and ship to, one e-way bill will be sufficient. You don't have to raise two e-way bill. You have to raise two invoices. That's fine. But only one invoice from movement, wherein B issues tax invoice to C. The delivery is happening by the supplier to the customer. So for this leg from the supplier to customer, e-way bill will be required. Invoice will move from supplier to first customer and from first customer to his ultimate customer, invoice will be 2, e-way bill will be 1. Just one e-way bill is sufficient. For every invoice, e-way bill is not required. Okay. Okay. What is the time limit of a e-way bill? For every 20 kilometers, the validity is 1 day. And for every additional 20 kilometers, one additional day. That too in case of a over-dimensional and multi-mode shipment. If that is there, then 20 kilometers. But for a normal transport from Bangalore to Mumbai, Mumbai to Hyderabad, Cochin to Ernakulam, or Cochin to, say, somewhere in the east, Kolkata. So for these movement by roads, right, the e-way bill validity is saying 200 kilometers 1 day. When the distance is up to 200 kilometers, the validity will be 1 day. If the distance is 300 kilometers, the validity of e-way bill will be 2 days. ऐसा नहीं है कि every e-way bill will have a fixed validity. It will depend on the distance from the place of supplier to the destination. Okay. What is the distance? Based on that, the validity of e-way bill is decided. So up to 200 kilometers 1 day, every 200 kilometers additional 1 day. And for a over dimensional cargo, that is a big cargo, and both the condition is for both over dimensional cargo and multimodal shipment. That is, their shipment happens through multiple modes, through road, through air, through waterways. At least there has to be two modes. If it is only single mode, then it will not be coming under this. It will be coming under normal. If it is multimodal, then it is 20 kilometers, because 20 kilometers काफी कम हो जाता है. But in case of over dimensional cargo and multi-mode shipment is involved, then the handling, loading, unloading, lot of things happen. That's why they've kept 20 kilometers. But if it is single mode, then it is 200 kilometers per day. If the distance is 201 kilometers, then the validity is 2 days. That's the advantage you get. Up to 200 kilometers 1 day. Any additional kilometer also you will get one more day. ऐसा नहीं कि part of the day, every 200 are part thereof. That is 200, 250 also will get 2 days. 201 also will get 2 days. Okay. That was on e-way bill and on major topics what we have covered. Now, if you do not furnish your returns, like how we don't furnish the returns, our returns will get blocked. Similarly, if you do not furnish your returns for consecutive 2 quarters, or a person who's paying tax under regular scheme has not furnished for 2 periods, then, or a person whose registration is suspended, then he cannot raise a e-way bill. He has to make a request to the commissioner saying that no, I'm not able to pay taxes. If the commissioner agrees, then your e-way bill will be allowed to be raised. Otherwise, your e-way bill will be blocked. Okay, so you have to file your returns regularly. If you do not file your returns regularly, your e-way bill also can get blocked. Validity period confused. We have discussed Nagaraja. Validity period is your 200 kilometers 1 day, and every additional kilometer after that, up to 200 kilometers, you'll get the second day. So if it is say 530 kilometers, for how many days validity? Normal transport, not multidimensional. Yes, Kulika, correct. 3 days. 200 plus 200 plus for that additional 130, you'll get one more day. Totally 3 days, you will get it. Right? Any more questions? Single e-way bill for single invoice. Yes. Single e-way bill for single invoice, a multiple e-way bill can create. We had discussed, Parthasarthi, that multiple e-way bills can be created for one invoice. That's possible. When to generate consolidate e-way bill? When the transporter has multiple goods and he wants to bring everything together, then he can raise a consolidated e-way bill. Yeah. When can a consolidated e-way bill be raised? In e-way bill EWB2, where multiple consignments are intended to be transported in one conveyance, that is, in one lorry or in one tempo. He wants multiple goods, then he can raise one consolidated e-way bill. It allows the transporter to carry a single document instead of separate documents. ऐसा नहीं कि my consignments are many, so I can raise it. No, it's only for the transporter. For multiple goods, he can consolidate it one. A user should have all the e-way bill numbers of the consignment, which the transporter shall transport. Consolidate e-way bill does not have independent validity period. So you cannot say that he will consolidate everything and the validity period will increase. No, it only is for the convenience purposes. Whatever is the validity period for each e-way bill, that will apply. Okay. Thank you very much, Lokesh. Thank you, everyone. It was a good session in terms of, yes, MCQs helped us to understand it. But if there is, yeah, question, yes, Nagaraja.
Sir, so same validity period, some question asked in BOS MCQ.
Okay.
Those questions are confusing, sir.
Okay.
Questions are ABC Limited generated e-way bill on 12th February at 12, 14 hours. It transported over dimensional cargo for a distance of 100 kilometer. The validity period of e-way bill will expire on if there is no extension of the same.
Okay. So if it is over
Sir,
dimensional cargo, then 20 kilometers per day.
yes.
So you calculate how many distance. If you're saying 100 kilometers, 100 divided by 20, which is 5 days.
The times are times are option
Ah,
is there midnight
yes,
of
yes,
13th
yes.
14th.
That time will be when you generated. Say today you generated. Then it will start from today night. The time starts from today night So you will get one additional day. So if you generate earliest, say if you generate at 5 o'clock, you're getting today time also and you're getting tomorrow's time also,
Not midnight, sir.
not midnight. So it will not be like today if you generate at 6 p.m., it will get over today. No, it will start from tonight and you can use it till tomorrow. Relevant date means the date on which the e-way bill has been generated, and the period of validity will be counted from the time at which e-way bill has been generated, and each day shall be counted at the period expiring at midday of the day. So today, if you have generated, from today night, it will be considered as one day. So if you have generated on 1st April at 5 p.m., it will not expire on 1st for 90 kilometers, right? So for up to 200 kilometers, one day, right? So it will expire on 2nd of April.
That means at 14 hours of 13th of February.
Huh. Okay. Thank you very much. It was a quick revision, but yes, it was helpful. And we have one more revision session on the Wednesday. We'll see on that Wednesday and cover up the topics what is assigned for that day. Yes, sir.